What's up, everybody? This is Cyrus, and this is a point that I've hammered home on a number of occasions, and so let's beat that horse a little bit more dead. And I'll once again mention that people around the internet, including popular esoteric websites, alternative media websites, paranormal websites, mainstream media outlets, tend to be completely clueless about the nature of life after death, spirit communication, and what spirits are. And so if you are navigating this maze, then it's very likely you are going to encounter bad information, which is especially harmful if you are grieving the loss of a loved one. Now, I'm not going to call out all the names and issues that I've encountered, but I will say that every now and then there's certain ideas that begin floating around to get a lot of attention and causes a lot of confusion and a lot of pain for a lot of people. And at Afterlife Topics Metaphysics, we have a pretty big group about this subject, and so we get a lot of people coming in who have these ideas in their minds. So one reason that bad ideas about the afterlife spread is because for some reason people like the sensational. So a sensationalistic paranormal YouTube channel can easily get tens of thousands of subscribers. This channel is, we're struggling to get 1,000, and that's the sad reality. So attempting to spread real, truthful knowledge about what the afterlife is like and what dying is like usually gets a response of crickets. Now, if I came on here and I began spreading fear, or I began spreading kind of nonsensical new age ideas, or I began telling people what they want to hear by saying that we all die and become angels who float up to heaven, and we have, unlimited power, and all our mental problems are fixed, and we don't have to worry about anything, and self-development work is not needed, and we don't have to do any self-development work while we're alive here. We can just wait until we're dead and all our problems are solved. Then I'd probably be tripling, quadrupling, maybe tenfold increase in subscribers. Everybody would want to hear the message because people just like to be BS to, especially if it makes them feel good. But that's not what this is all about. That's not what I do. That's not why I write my books. That's not why I develop communities about this topic. I'm here to spread accurate information based upon historical, knowledgeable sources of spirit communication, as well as verifiable out-of-body experiences, solid interpretations from like near-death experiences, and a lot more subjects where we have, I think, a pretty good idea about what life is like on the other side, especially those of us who do like out-of-body experiences. We've spoken to deceased people. It's not a big controversy to us about the afterlife, what it's like. There's none of these like unknown variables. People say, well, nobody will really know what happens when you cross over until you actually die, so all we're doing is just speculating. No, if you're in direct contact with deceased people, then you can have a pretty good idea. Just like somebody describing a foreign country, you can be pretty sure that the foreign country exists. So just real quick, I'll go over a couple of the myths about this stuff. And yeah, go ahead and dislike the video because a lot of you people have these ridiculous ideas, and then when I challenge it, I get the 1-star book reviews, I get the the downvotes, dislikes, and all that. But go ahead, because I think in the end the truth will win out over your BS. So, with that said, people who die are not wandering around the earth waiting until they have completed their karma, or they have found some kind of solace, or somebody has told them finally to go to the light. Yes, there are such a thing as, quote, earthbound spirits. They tend to be there out of their own choice. People can ask them to go to the other side and go with them, but they have some kind of a mental issue to begin with, and they prefer to haunt around us and be voyeuristic, and they reject any offers to help them. It doesn't mean that they are been banished to the earth plane and you have to go pay some medium $500 to come in and help Uncle Larry finally go to the light. Most of the time when people have contact with the deceased, they're coming from their world, which we call the Astral Dimension. It's like our world. It's much more beautiful. It's a higher density, it's a higher vibrational version of our universe, basically. They come from there down to here to make contact in an attempt to make us feel better. Then we receive that contact, and what happens then is we interpret that as, Uncle Larry has become earthbound. Uncle Larry's been rattling the kitchenware in the kitchen. That means he's stuck on Earth. We have to go pay a medium $500 to get Uncle Larry out of here. No, it's nonsense. Uncle Larry just wants to make contact to let you guys know that he's okay, and you're completely misinterpreting what's going on. Number two, people who are deceased are not existing in some ethereal, phantasmagoric realm. So I recently read an article where it's talked about what is it like to be a spirit. And it basically says, you're translucent, you go through walls, you float around, and you miss all the nice stuff that came with physical existence. Like, what is this? This is literally the conception of like pop culture. It's like people watching too much Doctor Who. No, what all that person is doing is describing what it's like to be on the near-Earth astral, where there's a vibrational, dimensional inconsistency from one realm to the next. So in that kind of situation, which I've been in that situation because I've practiced that state, you can come out of your body and you can float around, and you are translucent. There's like this inconsistency between wavelengths. It causes like this interference pattern that makes you look translucent. And you can go through walls, you can float around, nobody can see you there. And it is kind of a weird experience. It's not the most pleasant experience in the world, but super interesting if you can achieve that. And I'm very grateful when I've been able to do that. You can spy on people and you can verify that it was real. You can be a ghost. This is not the afterlife. This is just going out of your body and going in between realms, the near-Earth astral. When you're in the, quote, afterlife, which is what we call the astral dimension, a different frequency that our consciousness goes to and reconstructs its life, it's a solid physical place. It's malleable to thought. There's a lot of different elements, and we explore that in this channel, and there's a lot of resources that you can find to learn about that. But it's a real solid environment with real people, and people have jobs, people go to work, people have houses. Excuse me. So this is not so the idea that people who die and become phantasms, anyone who spreads that idea is spreading disinformation to be sensationalistic, and this also causes pain for people who are grieving. That's not true. We know from reliable spirit communication that a higher density dimension is just like the world we're in now, but there's a lot of different rules in place. But the people who die and cross over to that side are still themselves. Maybe they look different, maybe they can become younger, or they can change or shift their shape sometimes, because like I said, there's different rules. It's a bit more malleable to thought. At the end of the day, though, it's a real solid place people go to, and no one's a phantasm. They'd be just as creeped out as we would be if somebody was floating around translucent and haunting their house. In fact, I've been in astral situations where people have told me, don't mind the ghost, my house is kind of haunted. And basically what they mean by that is that there's some entity living there between dimensions and bugging them. So people on the astral side deal with ghosts and phantasms too, probably a lot more than we do, if you can believe that. Third thing, and this is a different end of the spectrum, when we die, we don't become all-knowing angels cleared of all of our individual personality qualities. This means, sadly, if you are kind of a bastard in this life, you will die and still be a bastard, and you'll also be feeling highly accountable for all of your actions, especially if you have like a life review where basically they use an Akashic technology to play back your whole life, and you re-experience all of it, and you realize what a jerk you've been. So this is one of the things that inspires people to reincarnate, because they realize, I effed up my opportunity to do so much on that side. I'm going back to get this right. That's what traditions also call karma. But the point is that the idea that we instantly become omnipotent, angelic, perfect beings would mean that Jeffrey Dahmer can eat a bunch of people, die, and then become the angelic Jeffrey Dahmer floating around with his group soul and hanging out in this higher dimension, heavenly environment and everything's perfect and it's light and love and all this kind of, garbage, basically. This would mean that there's moral relativism. It would mean that we can go out, murder and kill, and get away with it. All we have to do is die. Very dangerous, very, very dangerous philosophy. And the New Age airhead authors who promote this idea, they've never thought of the ramifications of that line of thinking. They've never thought that, if everybody, if some school shooter read my work and thought that they can go out and massacre 20 kids, and then if they die afterwards, they're immediately an angel and all their problems are cleared and they go straight to heaven, then, maybe that's going to inspire them to go out and kill all those kids. Now, legitimate spirit communication, again, shows us that this is not the case. We retain our individualities, whether or not we have a higher self or a group soul or all that stuff. We retain our individual awarenesses of who we are, and who we are when we die is the same as who we were right before we died. Life is about self-development, making the hard decisions, working things out, improving ourselves in life, and there's not shortcuts to that. And so the idea that there are is irresponsible. So look, if you've read my books, if you've seen some other videos in this channel, my spiel, I talk about this a lot, but sometimes people come through like the Afterlife Topics group disturbed by some of the stuff that they hear, and it pisses me off. And if you're one of those people who, keeps propagating these ideas and you just hate the idea that, I'm disagreeing with you, then go ahead, dislike this video. I like to see how many people are going to dislike it because I'm interrupting their precious belief systems. But I'm going to keep doing it. And I've had literal death threats from my books. Okay, from my first book, especially Understanding Life After Death, because I had a section or a chapter near the back where I talk about the misconceptions about the afterlife. And I've had people telling me that I should never publish anything again, that I was the worst book they ever read, and that if they see my book on any bookshelves, they will steal the book and they'll burn the book. Okay, well, if you really want to become a shoplifter on my behalf, go ahead. But why did I piss people off so much? Because I have a section where I talk about how there's sex on the astral plane. We don't become these puritanical angels. I talk about how there's negativity, how there's people still have issues they have to work out, about how the astral plane can be very Earth-like. I talk about how we don't become angels immediately after we cross over. I talk about a lot of other sacred cows, basically, that I've challenged. And this has pissed a lot of people off. And good, I'm glad, because I believe that the truth will win out in the end. And, so if you hate the concept, then, you can be one of my anti-fans. But for all the people who have told me how much they hate what I have to say, I've had, of course, many, many, many more people tell me that my realistic portrayals of the afterlife matched up with all of their experiences. They couldn't find anybody else writing about what they felt all this time were the real conditions, but they're afraid to talk about it. I've had people tell me that, by contrast, people telling me that my books were the worst books they ever read. I've had people tell me that my books were the best books they've ever read. And I've had probably a dozen people at this point tell me that my book saved their life, that they were on the verge of suicide, they knew about an afterlife, but they were terrified of it because of the things that they've heard about it. And it was my book that finally brought the subject to light, but also my resources. And again, objective resources about the afterlife all line up with what I'm saying. It's nothing new. I'm not bringing anything new to the table. You can check out Victor Zamet's work, Jürgen Ziwe's work. You can check out a lot of spiritualist lore. You can check out even some of the great teachers like Silver Birch. I mean, again, repeats the same stuff about self-responsibility and what the other side is really like. So I'm not bringing anything new to the table. All of this stuff is discovered again and again and again by the people exploring real spirit communication. That's it for this rant. Go ahead and dislike the video if you hate what I have to say. I'm happy if you do. But if you like what I have to say, then please like the video or to subscribe to the channel, because that's going to keep the channel going. Because YouTube doesn't like new channels very much, and so it's difficult to break through that barrier, but with your help I might be able to. You can find out more at afterlifetopics.com. I have links to the books in the channel description, as well as the Facebook group, and feel free to reach out to me. This is Cyrus. I'll talk to you next time.